September 6th, 2017, the morning of Hurricane Irma's arrival. We had spent the previous 2 days boxing up the outside of our house with plywood, boarding every window up. We boarded more windows up than I've ever boarded up before. With each weather report, we added more wood.
Things are changing with every model run, it seems. You can see that just how huge this system is. The winds across it, about 400 miles in diameter. And right now we've got currently the warnings for up for Anguilla, St. Martin, Antigua, Barbuda, Virgin Islands, on into Puerto Rico, Hispaniola, into the Turks and Caicos, watches for Cuba and the Bahamas.
At 8 in the morning, September 6th, I dropped my wife Janet off next door where that would be our safe house.
Just the beginning, Hurricane Irma.
This storm is expected to be the worst storm we've ever experienced.
Probably the most thorough hurricane prep we'd ever done because we knew that a monster was headed at us. And I know that there was a feeling like we might never see the boat again.
Look at the size and scope of this storm system. 420 miles in diameter. The tropical force winds extend out in diameter 300 miles.
It was sounding pretty wild already, and that was about 11 o'clock in the morning.
I think I'm not going to go snorkeling today.
It was bad. It was rough. I texted my wife, I said, I'll see you in a little while with or without a roof on the house. She texted back immediately and said, get out of there. Get out of there now. I knew that I would be traveling from house to house outside in the beginning of the storm. I did not expect that I would be making that passage from house to house in the height of the storm.
Time to prep with food and water, and basically tried to place rations around different parts of the house because we were a little unsure as to what part of the house was going to be the safest. We did position a lot of the stuff in the bathroom that we called the Alamo because we figured that was the safest place if the rest of the building were to be compromised. And it's a good thing we did. It definitely, the roof came off the house towards the middle of the storm, and we were in that bathroom for over 4 hours anyway. Just the walls were shaking, terrible noises of tearing metal and breaking glass, and there was definitely a few hours there. We weren't exactly sure how that was going to play out and if we had made the right decision or not to stay where we did.
During Irma, it was very, very scary for me. Again, being the first time being in a major hurricane and not really having a set expectations of what to expect. You know, as the wind started to pick up and the doors started to fly open and, you know, my house above me started to crumble. I mean, you know, not knowing what that noise was, whether it was my house, whether it was my neighbor's house, it was, you know, a lot of nervous energy. And, you know, having my family with me, I couldn't show them that I was scared. So that was even tougher, trying to pretend like everything is okay when you're not even sure yourself.
Moments after that text, an 8-foot section of plywood on our porch blew in. I got down on my knees and tried to put it back into place, to get it into place, to put some screws in to hold it in place. I couldn't push the sheet of 8-foot plywood against the wind that was already coming in the hole in our house. I didn't want that to be the beginning of the end. So I laid the plywood on the floor and I got 6 screws started in it with the electric drill. And I lifted it up in what I perceived to be a temporary lull in the wind and had to fit it exactly into its spot with very little tolerances. I got it in place and I screwed the 6 screws that were already started in, and then I added another 12 for good measure. Just then when I was finished with that, I realized there's 2 more 8-foot sections of board right next to that one, that if this one blew, they were going to blow too. I got down on my knees and reinforced those with a half a dozen or a dozen screws. By the time I was working on the third 8-foot sheet of plywood, the wall separated at the railing level of the porch about 6 inches to 12 inches. Basically, the roof was pulling off, and it was separating the wall in half.
Well, to begin at the beginning of the storm, it didn't seem like much to do, and then, as we all know, it intensified, and a door blew open, and because I was in borrowed finery, I thought I would try to keep their bed dry. So I reached, it was 2 double doors, a double door, and I reached out to grab the handle and pull it in, and got sucked out at 1 o'clock. It was probably right around 1. I looked at the clock, and I fell to the ground, and I was like the Three Stooges. I crawled to the door, and it slid me back. I crawled to the door, and it slid me back. Then my dog came out, and I was afraid that he would get blown to Kansas. So I grabbed him, and I grabbed the ladder. There was an extension ladder. Put my elbow, which got really damaged, into the wall, and laid there with his warmth underneath me. And then a mahogany door hit me from head to foot. I've got nerve damage in my foot now, and took a real good blow. Blood all over, and I brought my own sheets and towels so that I wouldn't dirty anything. And then at 3 o'clock, when the storm subsided, I went and hid in a corner and got their towels totally bloody. And after it subsided about 5 o'clock, 4 or 5, I crawled through my house to a neighbor and knocked on their door and asked if they could let me in. And the woman almost passed out because of the gash in my head. And they go, "Are you okay? Are you hurt?" And I'm like, "I don't feel a thing. I had felt nothing." I was in shock. The next day, when I went upstairs and saw that the whole upstairs with custom-made shutters and steel bars were blown away, and everything in the house was blown away. And I looked out, and mine was upside down in the road.
Well, this is the worst destruction, the most destructive event that I've ever witnessed in my position as a New York State Trooper. I've done a lot of things around the state of New York, but I've never seen destruction on this level.
Hurricanes are a natural process here. This particular one, Irma, was unprecedented, probably in the human habitation of these islands, really. But I'm sure they have been some very severe storms to hit St. John in the past. It's hard to tell from the historical record because every hurricane to every generation seems like a total catastrophe. I mean, everybody thought that Hugo, even on St. John, was just as bad as it could get. And I kept saying, no, Hugo on St. Croix is as bad as it can get. You know, possibly that's one of the reasons the original settlers moved on from here. I was thinking about that with all of their shorefront settlements. A storm of this magnitude could have made them say, okay, we're all going to St. Croix, evacuating now. But it is a natural process, and it will be a long recovery for a lot of our natural entities here, the plants, the birds, the reefs.
My name's Ron Winnie. I'm from Saratoga Springs, New York. We own this villa here, Villa Mir. We've owned it for, I believe, about 4 years now. So I watched the beginnings of Hurricane Irma. There were some webcams up on some local homes, and I saw the waves and the wind picking up and stuff, and so actually I started watching it the night before too, until it got dark and couldn't see anything. There was a webcam over on Yoast too that I was watching, so I was flipping back and forth, and then foolhardily I thought the next morning that, oh my goodness, this is pretty good. Looks like it's just going to kind of pass by and things will be all right. But the webcams went dark, and then so I'm checking the internet on national news and any kind of information. I just sat on top of, watched the internet all day long, getting news here and there as best I could.
St. John, one of the United States Virgin Islands, may represent Irma's worst impact on American soil. Tony DeCopo went there to talk with survivors.
I'm sure it's nothing like what the residents and you folks were going through down here at the time. I can't imagine that, but it was stressful, I think, for people upstate too, because you just didn't know what was going on.
In 1 second, there was light in the house. I turned to my right and looked. I saw the roof go over my head in a fraction of a second. The house was filled with light and rain, bits of fiberglass insulation and chips of wood. I ducked, and only little pieces were flying around and nothing hit me. I opened the door, knowing that that was the least of our worries now. And now was the time where I had to be careful with the ground. Everything on the ground was wood, broken debris, branches. The wood was mostly upside down. Our air conditioner was ripped right out of the wall and already on the ground. There was just debris everywhere, and in all of the wooden debris were screws and nails, and they were all sticking up. Once I made it through the breezeway, in between the living room and the master bedroom pod, beneath the trellis, I was on the open pool deck. And once on the open pool deck, there was no protection from the wind in any direction. I was in the full force of the wind. And as soon as I hit the pool deck, without having time to even think about it, before I could get to the staircase that led down to my safe spot, where all the others were, a gust came, spun me around, lifted me off my feet, and threw me against the exterior of the house. I hit with my hands out, the football helmet hit the wall, cracked. I slid it back down to the deck and pushed myself away from the wall, stunned with what had just happened. And just as I realized that, another gust came and threw me across the breezeway 15 or 20 feet to the bedroom pod wall, completely out of control. And I knew at that instant, my body, my head, my legs were no match for the wind. Nearly 500 boats were damaged, sunk, or destroyed in the waves and winds generated by Hurricane Irma. Hurricane Hole became a graveyard of sunken boats. Just now, in September, a year later, the Park Service has finished their removal of the boats along the shoreline of St. John, whereas the Marine Salvage Group, they came in, hired by FEMA, to clean up the shores. They were here 2 months after the storm and did miraculous work clearing all the boats, or nearly all the boats, off the shore. They did great work. They had hard hat divers putting lines underneath sunken vessels, pulling them up with cranes and putting them on barges, filling the barges with broken boats, sending those off. I'm not even sure where they sent them. I was told that they went to the States.
The next few months after these double storms of Irma and Maria are going to be tourist quiet. We will see, historically, at least from the other hurricanes, we've always seen homeowners come back to check their properties even before power is restored. They want to see what the damage and what the condition is. They pass through fairly quickly. We'll certainly have a burst of relief. FEMA, Army Corps, later on the electrical workers that we hope will be coming in.
The thing that amazed me the most was just their smiling faces, and they were very happy to see us and very friendly and polite and everything. And it's like, man, with all these people have been through, and they're still this way. So
there'll be traffic like that's business oriented, short term. We will generally roll back into a tourism mode. It'll take a while. We've lost our two major hotels. Weston and Kinneil are going to be closed. Cinnamon Bay Campground will be closed. Concordia Resort is going to be closed. The accommodations availability this winter is going to be thin. There'll be a curiosity factor for how did we do, what do we look like of people coming back, as well as the fact that everything that makes St. John desirable and popular is still in place.
St. John, it will recover. It may not be exactly the same, but it's not. This is not a forever situation.